The Lake Michigan Triangle. An imaginary boundary in Lake Michigan starting at Ludington, Michigan, to Benton Harbor, Michigan, and ending at Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Legend has it, Lake Michigan has its own Bermuda Triangle with several strange events occurring there. Tales exist of disappearing ships, ship passengers, and an airline flight. Join us as we take an in-depth look at some of the mysteries that gives this place its name. Besides the Bermuda Triangle, few areas in the world have a reputation for the bizarre like the Lake Michigan Triangle. Although it is relatively unknown on a global scale, especially compared to Bermuda, it has a history of unexplained events and disappearances dating back centuries. Stretching from Ludington to Benton Harbor, Michigan and to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, the Lake Michigan Triangle has inspired numerous accounts of activity that are difficult to explain by rational thought. One of the earliest known incidents in the Lake Michigan Triangle was the disappearance of the sailing ship Le Griffin and her crew on September 18, 1679. Le Griffin docked at La Grande Bay, now present-day Green Bay, loaded 12,000 pounds of fur, and set sail for Lake Erie. However, the vessel never arrived at her destination, and no confirmed remnants of the ship have ever been located. Some presume that Le Griffin perished in a storm. Others have theorized that the Ottawas or Potawatomis boarded her, murdered her crew, and then set her ablaze. The ship's builder, however, was convinced that the pilot and crew sunk the ship and made off with the fur. Another strange event happened when a ship named the Rosabelle, a two-masted schooner used to transport materials to the House of David in Benton Harbor, was found capsized twice, in Lake Michigan, with no signs of her crews between 1875 and 1926. In 1875, a car ferry crossing the lake discovered the schooner floating upside down. The 10-man crew who departed with the boat were never found. The ship was then turned over and returned to her port in Milwaukee, where she remained in service. In October 1921, the ship was ready to depart again with a load of potatoes and maple lumber. However, the ship's captain, Ed Johnson, refused to board the schooner, speaking of a premonition that a disaster was about to occur. The crew could not convince Johnson to board the Rosabelle again, so they left without him. Days later, the ship was found capsized again, with no signs of her crew. The stern was missing, indicating that there was a collision, but no ship reported having an accident. The United States Coast Guard, which dragged the schooner into Racine Harbor, later determined that there was no collision. A strange disappearance occurred when George Donner, a captain of the O.M. McFarland, a coal freighter, disappeared. On April 28, 1937, Donner's 58th birthday, the ship picked up 9,800 tons of coal in Erie, Pennsylvania, and then traveled west through the lakes, bound for Port Washington, Wisconsin. The captain had spent hours on the bridge directing the O.M. McFarland through ice floes. When they reached Lake Michigan, Donner retired to his cabin, instructing the crew to alert him once the ship neared her destination. 3 hours later, when the vessel neared Port Washington, the second mate went to Donner's cabin but found that it had been locked from the inside. Assuming Donner had gone to the galley for a snack, he went to galley but to no avail. The crew then began an extensive search for their captain, but it was futile. They eventually broke the door to the cabin but didn't find Donner. Donner was too large to fit through the 2 portholes in his room, and showed no signs of depression or suicidal thoughts. Local ports and ships searched for Donner in the water, but no sign of him was ever found. For our final entry, though there are many more, the disappearance of Flight 2501. On the evening of June 23, 1950, Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 2501, carrying 55 passengers and 3 crew, left the LaGuardia Airport in New York City for Minneapolis. Although a pre-flight review of the weather revealed thunderstorms and possible squalls along the route of the flight, it was not a great concern to the crew. However, to avoid turbulence, Captain Robert Lind requested to descend to an altitude of 4,000 feet instead of his assigned 6,000 feet. After severe turbulence caused another plane to fall 500 feet while flying over Lake Michigan, Air Traffic Control instructed Lind to descend to 3,500 feet to avoid a collision with the other aircraft, to which Lind obliged. Later, Lind and his co-pilot decided to steer south in an attempt to avoid storm activity. However, they inadvertently flew directly into a squall line. At 11:13 p.m., the plane made their last radio transmission, requesting to descend to 2,500 feet. The request was likely made because the crew wanted to drop below the clouds and obtain more visual clarity. However, Air Traffic Control did not grant them clearance because another plane was departing from Milwaukee at that time. Shortly afterwards, locals between Benton Harbor and South Haven reported hearing an aircraft flying low to the ground before witnessing a flash of light over the lake. Some witnesses reporting hearing an explosion, although it was hard to differentiate the sound from the thunder. By midnight, radio operatives realized that the plane was missing. The next day, the Coast Guard discovered an oil slick and partial debris approximately 18 miles northwest of Benton Harbor. In the following days, the search resulted in the discovery of human remains such as ears, hands, and bones, a seat armrest, and pieces of upholstery. Officials needed to temporarily close certain beaches due to the amount of debris washing ashore. However, searchers have never been able to find any sizable amount of the plane or its engines. Most of the debris found was no larger than a person's hand. Authorities assumed the aircraft crashed into Lake Michigan, and are still uncertain what caused the plane to go down. The most commonly accepted explanation is that it was the result of bad weather conditions and the pilot's lack of visual clarity. Another theory is that the plane was struck by lightning, causing it to explode. However, none of the debris recovered had burn marks. Conspiracy theorists have suggested that the plane was taken by a UFO, citing that 2 police officers in the area saw red lights hovering over the lake for 2 hours after the plane disappeared. So, what do you think about the Lake Michigan Triangle? Do you know of any other strange occurrences there? Drop a comment and let me know. Thank you for watching.